Hi, welcome back to my workspace. I'm Chris Pellettieri and I'm glad you're here for another lesson in stone carving. This is our second project. I call it the Monogram. And I think if you're here to learn stone carving, there's a rule that applies probably to learning lots of different things, which is that the projects that you select as part of your learning process really important. You want to increase the challenge with each project. So if you're like here, you want to be reaching higher, but you don't want to be reaching like so much higher that it becomes unrealistic. You don't want it to be you don't want to tackle a project that's going to take you like 10 times longer than the project that you successfully completed before. I mean, it's not against the law, but there are drawbacks. There are reasons why it's not advisable to do that. It's like if you've learning to play piano and you've successfully played 3 Blind Mice, and your target is to next you want to do like a Beethoven piano concerto. It's just unrealistic, and it's going to get discouraging and frustrating. And instead of learning, you'll be like slowly, you know, your work speed will slow down so much that you're not really making progress in an optimal way. There's no laws. You can do anything you want, and it's all good, but some ways work better than others. So, this is an example of a monogram that one of my students did in the past. A monogram just means 2 letters. It could be 3 letters. The surface of the letter projects from the level of the background. See? Optimally, it's a requirement that there be some overlapping. See how the E goes under itself here, and it goes over the B here. That's an important feature of the monogram. But you know, some people they're just turned off by the idea of letters, so they want to do something different, and that's fine. You could do like an infinity sign, you know, like the or you know, basically anything. It just needs to be projecting. It needs to be flat like straps, not like concave or convex. That's a little more of a leap than I encourage you to do. It's not against the law. I've had people do that and it's come out great, but I think it's best when they're just flat forms like strap. Like if you shrunk yourself down to the size of an ant, these would be like roads that you could drive on. And here's an overpass and an underpass. You know, that's the idea. Okay, you get it. You get the idea. So the first step is going to be designing your layout. And you can do that on paper. You can do it on paper, you can do it directly on the stone. Either way. But this is the beginning of your experience and expansion into projects that require designing, because a flat surface didn't require any designing. So I'll say a few words about that. This is simple enough that you could design it straight on the stone. There are other things you're going to want to do later that would involve doing something on paper first. If you stick with this long enough and you continue to progress. So that's really a sensible thing to do. Don't be afraid of drawing. I know if you feel like you're not good at drawing. I hate drawing. My drawings never come out good. I won't show them to anybody. I can relate to that. I don't love drawing, and I've never felt so proud of my drawing that I'm like, look at what I drew. It's always just a tool. It's a means to clarify your intentions before you put it on the stone. It's not like meant to be going on exhibit. And even if it's awful, even if you feel like I wouldn't want to show this to anybody, it's still going to make your stone carving more successful if you draw it first, because you'll pick up on things that, like, oh wait, I don't like that. That part is too big. That part is too small. So I encourage you to begin to draw, even if you're like, I don't enjoy drawing and I'm not good at it. That's okay. Do it anyway. So here's what I drew. I drew it kind of light. I don't hope it comes out on the camera. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, zoom in on that.
These make great gifts, so I'm going to give this to somebody whose initials are SA. Yeah. So obviously, I'm going to... Okay, there's levels of preparation. You could do this the exact size of the stone that you're going to work on, and then use scissors to cut it out, and then use it as a pattern, like a template, to mark your lines on the stone. Or you can just use this paper to work out how you're going to intertwine, how you're going to lay the two letters over each other. See, I decided to, instead of the A having a pointy top, I'd have it like a straight line going across, just like Dürer, the German etching guy, because it works better with the SA. So I'm just going to transfer this by eye to the surface of the stone using a pencil, and the pencil is a hard graphite pencil, a 9H. That's a good pencil for when you're marking on limestone, because the point will last longer. Okay. Also, when you're designing in pencil on the stone, it's very easy to erase the pencil just by rubbing it with a work glove or even with your hand. There's other things you can mark on the stone that will last longer, like this China marker here. China marker really sticks a lot better to the stone. That doesn't rub out. But when you're marking something on and you know you might be needing to adjust it, the pencil's better. Okay. All right. Other thing you can do besides the China marker is ink. You can take a brush, put a little ink into a cup. You can blend it with water to sort of make it last longer. And then when the stone is kind of rough, see, the surface of this stone is pretty rough, and it would be hard to mark a nice design outlines with the China marker or with the pencil. So, but with a brush and ink, your line just it kind of glides over all those nooks and crannies, and you get a really nice layout. And it obviously, since it's ink, it doesn't rub off, because when you're carving, you'll be brushing away your dust, and that will just erase your pencil lines. Okay. All right. Here's my layout. No big masterpiece. You can take more time to do this if you want. Next thing I need to do is to have a line on the sides of the stone to tell me how far back the background is going to go. One big consideration when deciding on that is how thick your lines are. The thicker and fatter your lines are, meaning the lines of your letters, the stronger that is going to be, and the more it can project out from the surface. And I'm not saying more projection is automatically better. That's not always the case, although some people seem to think that way. But when the thickness of your letter strokes is on the thin side, like the thickness of like a pencil, even thinner than this, you don't want them to project out a lot, because when the background gets low, they're sticking out a lot, and that makes them very delicate and fragile and easy to break off. So for this design, I'm going to go about this depth with the background, and it's going to be fine. Since this surface is more rough, I'm going to show you how I can use this tool to make a nice even straight line. But I'm going to set it so that this part of the square is going to glide along the back, because the back is a lot more flat on this stone than the front. Okay? So I'm going to take it like this, and this part is going to be up against the back of the stone the whole way, so it can slide back and forth, and I can put my pencil against this part of the square, and it'll give me a nice even line. Now you'll be looking at me sometimes and thinking, Chris, I don't have the wealth to buy all these tools you're showing me. And that's fine. You don't have to. You can just get a straight edge, a simple straight edge from the store. That's very cheap. Or just anything straight, a piece of wood, a school ruler, whatever. Doesn't have to be fancy like what I'm using. As you get more and more into this craft, you'll expand your toolkit, and that's part of the fun. For me anyway, I'm a tool lover. I have so many tools at home, and sometimes my wife says to me, Chris, don't you have enough chisels? And I'll say, no, actually, this new chisel, it's going to do a better job at whatever task than anything else in my toolbox. Even if I have 500 chisels, there'll be times that this new one will do something in a better way, and it just makes sometimes the work more fun, is to be using something new. I don't sell chisels. It's not for my own personal gain. Alright, so this is the same as the last project. You know, we've got a line around all four sides, and we want to take the background down to that level. The difference is we want to not break the things that are going to project. So what do we do? How do we try to keep the chips from breaking the letters? Good question. Before I start trying to pitch or punch, I'm going to use my flat chisel to make a little protection around the letters. A small flat chisel should do the trick. And I'm going to place it just outside my black line. Can you see down on that? Do you need to get higher, do you think?
Yeah, I'll go up a little.
So I'm going to take my my flat chisel, and I'm going to put it just outside the black line. I'm going to hit, move it, hit, move it a little, hit, move it a little. So by not having the entire width of the chisel blade, that gives me the ability to like steer and go around curves in between hits. And I'm always hitting, the angle of my chisel is always such that the chips are going away from the protected thing. If I'm over here, I'm not going to hit like this, because that would be cutting into my A. I'm going to be angling the chisel like this, so that I'm going away from the thing I'm trying to protect, right? That's important. Angle, just like the last project, the angle that you hold the tools really determines what happens when you hit it. Okay, so here I am, making my way around, and I'm gonna leave this for later. I'm just gonna glide right around the top of the S. I'll show you how we're gonna get that stone out with a different technique later. Now when you're really close to the edge, like I am right here, what do you think is going to happen if I give this a hard smash? I'll show you something. Pay close attention to that pencil line. Uh-oh! Oh, what am I going to do? I took out part of my pencil line. That's what I was trying to prepare you for. If you're close to the edge like this, you got to be careful about hitting down real hard because you might break a piece just like I did. So you'll want to be a little more delicate right here. If that happens, don't despair. All is not lost. I'll show you later how we can clean that up and it won't even be noticeable in the end product. But we want to avoid it. I'm not going to try to get all the way into that little space. That's far enough. Okay, all right. Now, do you remember the flat surface? How we took that big tool called the pitch? That big pitch, and we put it on a little bit above the pencil line and gave it a big whack to break off big chips. I'm sure you remember that. That was very dramatic. Things are a little different now because we're not trying to get rid of as much stone. We can still use that approach in some spots. Like here, I'll try that approach. Right? But look at that chip. That chip went about 2 fingers into the stone. I wouldn't want to do that here because that would be risking something bad happening here. I wouldn't want to do that here. I could do that here because really there's so much background. I don't even come close to my my design there. So you got to be careful with your pitching. And pitching can be not just a pitching is not just a noun that refers to this tool. Pitching can be an action. So I can pitch using a different tool. I can pitch using this flat chisel. And that will give me smaller chips. Watch what this is an example of pitching with a different tool. I can even pitch with a punch. I can pitch action word with a punch. See? When I say pitching as an action word, I'm just referring to like putting a tool up against the vertical surface and breaking chips off according to my pencil line. Anyway, I'm gonna pitch with an actual pitch right here, okay? But I might block you. I'll do it from this direction. Can you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can move too.
Okay. The only way you're really going to be able to predict how far chips are going to go is just from practice and experience. And once in a while you'll make a mistake, and that's a better teacher than my words could ever be. So don't feel bad if something happens, because that's how you really learn. I mean, I know you will feel bad, but don't judge yourself you know, give yourself a pat on the back for being courageous and taking a chance, because you learn a lot more from your own actions than from being an obedient, you know, follower of my advice. One of the best ways you can accelerate your learning is to try to see this as just a piece of scrap. I know you paid for it, I know you have high hopes for how it's going to come out, but you'll learn faster when you're willing to take chances and occasionally let bad things happen that will help you learn what not to do. I wish I could follow my own advice sometimes. I know it's hard. So you see the way the surface is very hard to get the pitch on there, because it's, you know, it's got this big little hill there. So I think I'm gonna use the flat chisel. That might. Oh boy. I'm going to put my chisel right on the pencil line now. Remember, with the flat surface, it took me a while to get so I was ready to actually pitch right to the pencil line, but now I'm not taking so much stuff away, so it's a little faster. When you're thinking about what to do, what design to make, you know, some letters are combined much better than others. So maybe when you're just sitting in bed, like before you go to sleep, and you got your sketchbook out and you're trying to come up with a pleasing design, maybe think, if your initials don't work so well, maybe think of a friend's initials, your parents, or your son or daughter, and try to come up with one that makes a nice pattern. Sometimes I set up a whole classroom full of kids' initials before they come in, and some letters just work so much better together, and others I really struggle with. So I'm knocking off the chip right on the pencil line now. In a way, that sort of gives you a reference that you can see when you're breaking from above. You can see that. You can't see the pencil line from above. You have to move your head down like that, and it's hard to work like that. But when you break the chip off right on the pencil line, that's something you can see from above. So it's a really good practice. Last side, last side. This stone moving around so much, it makes me think of something. It makes me think how little stones, obviously they're cheaper if you're paying for the stone by the weight or by the dimension or by the cubic foot. But there's a drawback to little stones, is because they move around the table a lot and they drive you crazy. So now that I've done that pitching, I can start punching. I can start getting rid of some of the stone, working my way down with the background. That's the only way you get anything to project, is by getting working down the stuff around it. If you're used to working with wood or clay, and you think you could either glue a block of wood on top or build it up with clay, that's going to seem like a lot of trouble. But believe me, once you start working with stone, you'll get used to it very fast. And once you get good with your tools, it won't seem like such a chore to take away whatever, 3/4 of an inch or whatever, however much stone I'm breaking away to get these letters to project. We can think of this as step 1 of the Monogram project. Step 1 of the Monogram project is bringing the background down. Later on, we'll develop the island that's left. But step 1 is just creating that island by breaking up the stuff all the way around it. And all the stuff that I learned, all the stuff I taught you in the last project when we just created a flat surface, that's all going to come back to you now. Searching for the vulnerability, searching for where to put your punch to get the most results. Although now we have the added challenge of trying not to break the stuff that's going to project. So the direction becomes very important. When I'm close to my projection, I want to work away. I want my direction to be away. Nothing ever broke behind the point of the punch. The only thing that the chips break from in front of the point of the punch. They never break from behind it. So as long as you're moving away, you're not going to hurt that. Okay? But that's not the only thing that we want to avoid breaking. Can you see any disaster coming if I keep going the way I'm going? If I keep going like that in this direction, I'm going to break a piece that's going to go below my pencil line. I want to avoid that. So when I'm trying to get rid of stuff around here, I'll break in. My direction will be towards the center, towards the center. Like right here, I'm going to go in towards the center. I don't want to be punching this way, because that might result in a chip breaking here. So the direction is really important. That means you have to be light on your feet. You have to be ready to move around. Because if you're sitting, I understand wanting to sit. I understand wanting to be comfortable. But and I do it. Sometimes I do sit. But one of the drawbacks to sitting is you have resistance to getting up and changing your attack. Just like you don't want to get up when you're sitting down eating dinner to whatever, answer the phone or answer the doorbell. It's the same thing. When you're resting and sitting, there's a resistance there. So it's a lot better to stay on your feet. Now remember, I was talking about how nice it is to work in from the corners when I was doing the flat surface. The same is true here. It's nice to work in from the corners because when you're in a corner, you have two references that come together, two pencil lines that come together. So it's a little easier to tell visualize that surface that you're trying to create. So sometimes I exploit that. I almost always exploit that, and I start to finish my background from the corners. Okay? Here I am switching to the claw. I'll give you a nice view of that claw. I know I still have more punching to do, but I like to work my way in and go back to the punch. Get these establish some background. That makes it easier to see how far I have to go here when I'm getting far away from the corner. Just to review, the punch is the main waste removing tool. The claw is not meant to really dig that much deeper into the stone than the punch. The claw is really, in my way of thinking, a refining tool, and it's kind of a transitional tool between the punch and the flat chisel. And you're probably wondering, like, why do I even need the claw? Why can't you just flat chisel over the punch surface? Well, let's give that a try. I'll try that over here. I think that all of these tools are ancient. They've been in use for thousands of years, but I think the claw might not have been as old as the punch and the flat chisel, at least according to one book that I read. Yeah, let's see what happens if we try to go directly from the punch to the flat chisel without any clawing. Let's see what happened. I don't usually do this. It's just a habit for me to claw before I flat chisel. You can't really see this, but I can tell you from my own inner, viewpoint that it's a little bit less predictable the way that the chips are breaking, because there are some places where there's, like right here there's a big piece of waste, bigger, and right here there's relatively little. Here there's very little, so it's less predictable. mean, it's possible, you can do it, but I think I like it a lot better when I cloth things over first. I have to come up with a metaphor for why that's a little bit harder to do. But for those of you who really love the flat chisel, and they're not that crazy about the punch or the claw, I have another metaphor for you about the claw and the flat chisel and the punch. This process, it's a little bit like cleaning up a messy room. And to me, the flat chisel is like the vacuum. It's like the vacuum cleaner. That's the tool that you want to bring in at the end when you're just trying to pick up like dust and dog hair and cat fur, maybe some like dead leaves from your house plant. But if you have like books on the floor, if you have Barbie dolls or G.I. Joes or games and toys and whatever, you're not going to be able to pick those up with the vacuum. It's the same with the flat chisel. If you're trying to like dramatically transform a stone, you can't do that with the flat chisel. It's not the right tool. So you'll want to really be dedicated and disciplined and kind of, even if you don't like it at first, commit to getting comfortable with the punch, because that's the tool that's going to enable you to really transform a block of stone and not just I don't know, do like surface enrichment. Surface enrichment is very important, and I love it, and it adds so much, but it's very different from radically transforming the shape of the block. And for that you need the punch. So what's happening now? I'm inching my way towards the projection. I'm inching my way towards the letters. And if I'm not careful, I might chip off some part of the letter. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to that initial mentality of the protection, and I'm going to try to start more of like a wall that comes down using the flat chisel. I'm going to use the corner specifically of the flat chisel to get my my wall started before I come any closer with the background. It's not like I can push my floor of the background like right up against the letters without doing more from the surface down to create that wall. These videos are so great. I mean, really, I can't get my students, I don't even ask them to watch me do this whole process while they sit there. It's a very different thing though to be home on your phone or on your computer and watching it at home. I'd never watch this. Even when I was in your shoes, I wouldn't have watched this live because it's just awkward and uncomfortable. But on a video, it's a totally different story. And you can even have this video while you're working and start and stop it and speed it up if you don't need to watch something again. So I'm really glad to be able to do this for you. Okay, I'm going to bring my floor a little bit closer up to the wall. Closing in, closing in. But I don't want to go too far. I'm not going to put my chisel here and be like, because what do you think is going to happen if I would use that approach? A general rule of thumb, if you're hammering and there are no chips breaking off, like if I come to a stop here and I continue hammering and there's no chips breaking off, I'm putting shock into the root of this projecting bit. I'm putting shock into that, and the only conclusion is going to be that piece tearing off, like a big piece of something I don't want to break tearing off. So when the chisel stops moving, or the claw, or the punch, don't keep hitting it. You want to see chips breaking off. Imagine I wanted to break that off. That's what I'd do if I wanted to break it off. So I'm not going to do that. Okay, do a little more vacuuming, right? This is the flat chisel at its best. Hardly breaking anything, just removing the texture from the claw. I'm not trying to radically transform this surface. I'm just trying to clean it up. I'm just trying to take away my claw marks. A nice big flat chisel might make this process go faster, but I don't want you to think that you have to have 25, 30 tools just to get started. So far I've only used 3. Well, no, I used a pitch, but I didn't need to. I've only used the large, I'm calling this large, but it's really medium flat chisel, medium claw, and medium punch. You might have noticed that I like hitting the punch with the metal hammer, but for these for the claw and the flat chisel, I prefer the mallet. If you don't have the budget to get a mallet and a metal hammer, you can still get the job done with the metal hammer. So I want to get these walls more vertical, and I want to show you how I can use the flat chisel to do that. Intuitively, I've seen beginners, because I teach beginners this in person, and intuitively beginners want to go down. It works. It's not a completely useless approach. And I was a beginner once, so I understand that this feels like the best way to go. But now that I've had more experience, it's better to go along. It's better to go along the surface than it is to go down towards the background. It's better to go along that wall like this. See the results I'm getting? And then to come in along the floor. Because I need to get this stuff out. I need to get rid of this. The corner of the chisel is a super powerful part. You can use the entire blade, but the corner is generally a much more aggressive approach. Okay? I'm going to take another pass on the wall. Now I'm going to take another pass on the floor, because you're trying to create these two surfaces going down and going horizontally that come to a nice crisp, crease when they meet. Sometimes the intuitive approach is the best, and if you don't have anybody to teach you, then that's the only approach. That's the one that makes the most sense. Intuitive. But there's other times when intuitive is not the best approach, and this is one of them. Intuitively, I'm going to go like this, down. But this is actually a far better approach. There's an event in the Olympics where the athletes jump over a bar. They run up to the bar and they jump over it. Intuitively, you're going to keep your body like Superman, horizontal. But somebody at some point came up with the idea of flipping their bodies over as they approach and flying over backwards so that they're facing the sky. That's counterintuitive. But when people saw how much higher he was able to jump, everybody started jumping that way. So it's good to be open-minded and to sometimes try things that are not intuitive. It's a little awkward to try to give you this view, but I think it's really important. Okay, see how I'm working my way in there into that little narrow space between the A and the S. I'm not going to go all the way. As I promised, I'm going to show you another technique for getting the stuff out in these narrow, confined, little trapped areas. That's as far as I think I'll take it right now. Okay, we continue. We continue here. I guess this is a place where we could just either speed it up, because it's kind of the same as that. So we could either speed it up or just cut it out completely. Okay. I don't think I'm going to think of anything else important to say.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we'll just speed this part up. I think it would be cool to see it happening fast.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm about 80% done cleaning up the background. But here and here and here, there are 3 locations where the waste, or at least the background, is kind of trapped. Especially here and here. So one technique that makes it a lot easier to get rid of the stuff in these little wells, these deep wells, is using a drill. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. We should talk about tables. We should talk about things to support the stone while you're working. There's very fancy, awesome tools, tables with like either a crank or some kind of hydraulic method of going up and down like a barber chair. Sure, I'd love to get one of those, but you see, I haven't got them. I've got these wooden ones, but they're okay too, because you can, in addition to the wood, you can stack stuff under the stone to make it a little higher when you need it higher. I can stand on this if I wanted the work to be lower. I could raise my body up by putting this on the floor and standing on it. So, what's that? The reason I'm bringing that up is because it's kind of uncomfortable to drill into the stone when it's high. It's a lot easier to drill into it when it's low. That way you can also push your weight down more if it's heavy drilling you need to do. So I'm going to show you about that. It's going to be a lot more comfortable for me to drill with the stone like 6 inches lower than it was when I was chipping. Now you can get drill bits. The bit is like the cutting part, the part that you insert into the drill motor. And they come in all different sizes, and they're pretty inexpensive. So make sure you get masonry bit. Don't use a wood bit. It'll work, but it'll only work once because it'll get dull. So when you have a big area to drill, you can use a large bit. When you have a small area to drill, you use a smaller bit, and a combination of different ones. So I'll make my first hole right here with a large bit. And some drills are hammer drills and some are just twist drills. A hammer drill speeds things up. And here's the switch that... Now one question you're wondering is, how do I know how far to drill? There's one handy trick that you can use, which is to put the point of the drill onto the background and put a piece of tape across the bit so that it touches the surface of the letter when the bit is in far enough to touch the background. That'll act as an indicator and give you a visual indication. See what I'm doing here? I'm going to wrap the tape around the bit so that when now when I pick the drill up and I put it here, when this little flap of tape is touching the surface here, then I'll know I'm at the same depth as I was there. Alternatively, you could just do it by eye, blow out the dust and look, and you can always drill deeper later. So drill on the shallow side. See, it's getting close. You see? Now it's actually sweeping the dust away, so I can tell that it's getting close to the... Okay, good. I can make another hole here, and then I have sort of a triangular shape the way I do, which is closer to what I want. But I gotta switch to a smaller bit. With the tape, I'll just check the depth by eye. I think I'll go back to the big one now for this area. One more. Okay, so now what? Actually, maybe I'll do one here too. Change my mind. Okay, great. I'm just going to put my wood back. My little wooden platform. Now, in addition to getting a lot of the waste out for you, the drill holes act as a place to weaken the stone around it. So if I was trying to get into this triangle here without the holes, it can be done, but you'd have to go very slow because the stone is all protected. That's one of the hardest kinds of configurations to cut stone out of, is when you're forming a little compartment. But I'm using the flat chisel to get rid of all the stone around the holes, to shape those holes into the actual shape that I desire. This feels like a deep cavity to have to clean out, so you can imagine how much worse it would be if I would have made my pencil line like another ½ inch deeper. It could be done, but it's pretty challenging. And if you didn't have the drill holes, it'd be super challenging. Okay. There will be a time later in the project where this kind of work actually will be easier than it is right now. Because if you take a close look at the way the S letter travels across the A letter, you'll see that the S is like on top, right? It's like a bridge going over the top. So in order to make that illusion happen, we're going to have to get rid of some of this A. We're going to have to shape it, bring the level of that A down maybe to this level. You know, get rid of this stone. We'll do this later. I'll show you. But when that's done, it's going to be easier to dig into that little corner because these walls will be lower. And same thing here. This S is going to go under. S is going to go under the crossbar of the A. So I'll be taking stone out from here. And that's going to make it easier to dig into that little corner and clean that out. So I'm not setting my goal now to making that little corner perfectly, you know, that little compartment doesn't have to be a perfect little box. It's okay if I just get 90% of it or even 80% of it and say, that's good enough. I'll clean it the rest of the way later. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing up in here. Get rid of the stuff between the holes. And move around. Don't try to do all the way down to the background in one chop. Move around. Get it from lots of different angles. Okay? That's a rule, that's a general rule. When you're trying to get rid of stone, don't do it all in one attack. When you're trying to create these little compartments. Two hits from here, 2 hits from here, together. They come together. 2 hits from here, or 3. Working my way down, but not just from one attack. You gotta do multiple attacks. That way you're putting less shock into the stone. And this part of the S is pretty thin. So this part here is pretty thin. So I'm not going to try to hit it too hard. That could lead to disaster. You know, you can tell when something bad is going to happen sometimes by the noise that you make. When you're actually breaking stone and breaking chips away, it sounds different from when you're doing like not really breaking chips and just putting in shock. See if you can tell the difference between this noise and this noise. The second noise is just like pounding, but there's no chips breaking away. And sometimes across the room I can hear somebody doing something which scares me, and I feel like running over there and telling them, hey, wait, if nothing's breaking off, stop and try a different attack. Because when nothing's breaking off, that's when you're just putting shock into like a part that you probably don't want to break. This is where the small chisels really come in handy. And this isn't even a super small chisel. Sometimes, well, like there's little places where you'll need like a whole range of chisel sizes. Maybe while I'm doing this, I'll focus a little bit on what this whole thing is all about. Why are we doing this? What's the goal? These are long videos, so you probably realize this isn't the kind of video that's meant to like just generate massive numbers of likes and subscriptions and make me feel like, you know, I'm super popular. The purpose of these videos is really to explain things and to break things down and to enable you to be able to get skills that are very hard to get. And the reason that's important to me, I'm not making big money off of this. I'm getting big satisfaction though, because I know how much it meant to me when I started to get these skills. And I'm still growing my skills, but like when I was just at the beginning of my stone carving career, it meant the world to me to have somebody stop and explain something to me, and for me to have like a mystery solved, and for me to be able to understand better how I could do good work. Because the worst thing in the world is to think that the only way that people got to be good at something is because they had some special gift that they were born with, and if you don't have it, you're just out of luck. And I think there's a lot of people out there who like to perpetuate that way of thinking. And they'll just walk up to a stone with their big muscles showing, and they'll be like, they'll hit it once or twice with the chisel, and then the video will move forward like a month and show you the finished product, so that like you have absolutely no idea how they did it, but because they got this badass look on their face, you just think, oh my god, that person is just favored by God, and they just had this instinctive knowledge of what to do. And I guess those of us who don't have that will just never amount to anything. But I don't see that as being very helpful. So these videos have a very different mentality, and I really hope that you'll. I mean, it's fine to watch it for entertainment, but those of you who are out there trying to do this, I hope you'll send me pictures of your results, and we'll build a community, and we can each share our triumphs, and sometimes we can share our disasters and get support from each other. That's what this is really all about. And I don't know where you're watching from. I don't know when you're watching. You could be watching 10 years in the future. You could be watching 50 years in the future. but I really hope this is going to help you. Again, I'm going to take some from this side, okay? Then I'm going to take some from this side. Work my way into that space, little by little. I guess I could get the drill out and take a little more out of here, but I'll show you how to do it without the drill. I know. I said not to go down the wall, so I'm breaking my own rules sometimes. Try to widen up the channel on both entrance and exit. Work on the floor a little bit. So obviously, this is a time where having a narrower chisel would really come in handy. Okay, I'm pretty much through. And like I said, these areas can be cleaned up later when some of the parts of the letters get lower. Okay? Alright, now we get in here. I think this is probably the main place where things are going to get easier, because this surface here is going to go about halfway down to the background, so I'll have a lot easier time getting rid of this stuff. So I'm just going to clean it up to the hole there. Part of what you want to do, because when you start to do that process of bringing some of the surfaces down, you're going to cut your line away. You're going to cut your black lines away, and at this point in your practice, you're probably going to be finding that a little bit scary to cut your lines away, because that's what's been guiding you up until this point. So to actually cut it away might feel kind of scary, like you're taking your landmarks away, like you're lost in the woods with no trail markers. That's one of the reasons why you want to do the best you can at establishing straight walls and a clean floor for as much of the design as you can. Because when you do start to lose your lines, if 90% of your lines are clearly established by these walls, then taking away your black line is not really going to be as scary, because you have a very clear indication of your design, even without the black line. Okay, just one more. So this is a little different. I'm just gonna try to create like little points off of this circular drill hole. Right? I'm not gonna be able to get the walls of this compartment all the way down to the background because the shape is so it's so small. But even just this little extending of the drill hole will help me to keep the S in the right direction once I've cut the black lines away from the surface and am only relying on these walls for reference. Okay, that's enough for now. So, I've finished step one. I think we'll break this up into maybe 3 videos, but the first one is just establishing the background and the limits of the design. Now, the next challenge is to try to create this illusion of separate letters crossing under and over each other. So we'll take a short break and finish the project, show you how we do that. Please subscribe. A lot of people think you have to undercut more than is really necessary, and they end up breaking the piece off, including me. I'm one of those people.